Good morning, dear colleagues and members of the media. Our sincerest apologies for the delay, as Mr. Hlengani Matebula has alluded to yourselves. It is unprecedented that we delay our press conference with yourselves, and certainly would like to request your indulgence and accept our apology because we work on strict timelines. And certainly it is not our intention to have started as late as we have done. Indeed, as we have indicated in the request and the invite that we have made to yourselves, the issue that is on the table is the statement and the report that was made and issued on Friday, the 15th of September by KPMG. I want to indicate from the beginning that on the 15th of September at 09:24, an email was sent to the Office of the Commissioner, sent to my office by Norton Rose Fulbright, advising me the following. Dear Commissioner, SARS report / KPMG South Africa. We act for KPMG South Africa and KPMG International. We refer to the extensive document investigative review and collation of documents that KPMG South Africa conducted for SARS in 2014, 2015 in bracket in bold, investigative review close bracket, and to the report on allegations of irregularities and misconduct that KPMG South Africa produced as part of that engagement in brackets bold report. As you know, a version of the report dated the 3rd of September 2015 was leaked and made public on the 4th of October 2015. I need to emphasize, as you would know, a version of the report dated the 3rd of September was leaked and made public on the 4th of October 2015. KPMG International has conducted an investigation into certain matters involving KPMG South Africa, including the preparation of the report. The investigation was established, amongst others, that KPMG South Africa failed to appropriately apply quality controls in preparing the report and the letters provided to you on the 4th of December 2015. Both headed, I quote, Executive Report on Allegations of Misconduct and Irregularities, close quote. Accordingly, that part of the report which refers to the conclusions, recommendations, and legal opinions should no longer be relied upon. KPMG International will be issuing a public statement to this effect today. In the circumstances, and notwithstanding the firm's extensive work on this engagement, KPMG South Africa offers to repay the engagement fee of 23 million to SARS. Alternatively, at the election of the South African Revenue Service, KPMG South Africa will donate this sum to a charity of KPMG South Africa's choice. This offer is made on a without prejudice basis. Nothing in this letter should be construed as suggesting that the investigative review was of no value to the South African Revenue Services. 15 September 2017. I'm quoting this letter precisely to indicate that hardly had the ink or the paper from the printer had become cold, KPMG had already issued a statement without due regard of giving the client the opportunity and the time to respond and to look into these matters. I would like, therefore, for the purpose of this press conference, refer to the following issues. KPMG's conduct. SARS notes the media statement was issued by KPMG International on the 15th of September. The statement includes KPMG's international actions pertaining, amongst others, the setting aside of conclusions and recommendations of, I quote, allegations of irregular and misconduct, close quote, report. 2. SARS received an email from Norton Rose Fulbright acting on behalf of KPMG International on that morning, the contents of which I've read to yourselves. SARS has been taken completely aback by KPMG's aberrant and unethical conduct. KPMG unilaterally announced the purported withdrawal of its report, despite the existence of a service-level agreement governing the relationship between the two parties. It is important to note the material terms of the service-level agreement, which provides that 1. All rights, title, and interest, including intellectual property rights, literary works created, written, and or presented by KPMG and or its agents and employees, which relate to the service performed by KPMG, vest exclusively in SARS. 2. KPMG has irrevocably and in perpetuity transferred, made over, and assigned to SARS all intellectual property rights and which SARS has accepted. And finally, KPMG has waived all its moral rights conferred upon it as an author by the provision of Section 20 of the Copyright Act of 1978. Accordingly, the above contractual obligation confirms that the report belongs to SARS, as KPMG has surrendered all rights to SARS. It follows that the report is an exclusive property of the South African Revenue Service, and it constitutes South African Revenue Service intellectual property. The South African Revenue Service sees KPMG's conduct as nothing else but a dismal attempt to portray SARS and its leadership in particular as incompetent, inefficient, and involved in a witch hunt activity. It is the same narrative that has been perpetuated for years by some elements within the society and in the media. This abhorrent, unethical, and unprofessional conduct by KPMG has left SARS with no option but to consider the following legal route. 1. Instituting legal proceeding against KPMG for reputational damage to SARS, including but not limited to a civil claim. 2. Report KPMG to the relevant statutory audit bodies, both locally and internationally. 3. Report KPMG to the Minister of Finance with the aim of blacklisting KPMG for its unethical, immoral, and unlawful behavior. 4. Report to KPMG to the Minister of Finance to consider stopping all work currently performed by KPMG in all other departments, as well as any other work in the pipeline, until all the work KPMG conducted for the state have been investigated and reviewed for quality and proper auditing quality and expected standards. 5. Immediately cease any work which KPMG is currently performing for SARS and assess the work KPMG has performed in the last 10 years with the aim to determine whether there was any value for money and whether SARS should demand its money back. And finally, report KPMG to Parliament through SCOPA and SCOF with the aim to investigate the immoral conduct of KPMG and determine the appropriate action. We'd like to indicate the following, that there's been a number of issues that are in the public space which have been ventilated through the media over the weekend, people calling for investigations of conduct that SARS has been involved in. All those disciplinary activities that were conducted in the past had no bearing whatsoever with respect to the report that was presented by KPMG. SARS has observed with astonishment that some employees and others have been crisscrossing different media platforms with making unfounded and baseless conclusions as a result of KPMG media statement. We want to categorically state here that the allegation that KPMG report was used as a basis for disciplinary action as well as to institute criminal offenses are at the best falsity and at worst deceitful and aimed at misleading South Africans in particular. We do have facts and sequence of events that attest to the above statement. That during the period 2014, August, there was an investigation that was conducted, and it was an outcome of Advocate Sikhakhane with a mandate to investigate allegations that SARS ran a rogue unit. The information was reported by the media then, in particular the Sunday Times and City Press newspapers. The claims were, amongst others, that SARS had a unit which was not only established legally, but was illegally intercepting taxpayer information. We then want to confirm that upon the appointment of the new commissioner into SARS in 2014, the Sikhakhane Commission delivered the report on the 5th of November 2014, with serious conclusions and recommendations. Chief amongst others, the recommendation was that indeed SARS ran an unlawful rogue unit led by and reporting to individuals in the organization, some with insidious gross misconduct committed by both those who were in the leadership position at the time. On the 28th of February 2015, the Minister of Finance, the then Minister of Finance, Mr. Nene, established a SARS advisory board, which was chaired by the retired Judge Kroon, with a mandate to look into SARS processes with priority, bearing into the investigation and guidance on the Sikhakhane report. It is common cause that the Kroon Advisory Board found that the establishment of the secret unit within SARS in 2007, which covertly gathered intelligence, was unlawful. The board went further, to instruct SARS to charge employees involved and open criminal charges against those implicated in these crimes. The 3 employees, amongst them Van Lochtenberg, Pillay, and Peter Richer, were charged as a result of the Sikhakhane report, respectively, and the following dates: 14th, the 5th of February, and lastly on the 2nd of April 2015. The 3 individuals, instead of facing the hearing and to clear their names, all of the 3 opted to resign. We want to indicate the following. The KPMG report was delivered to SARS late in 2015 and was made official and final to SARS as we received it on the 26th of January 2016. It therefore follows that the disciplinary hearing against the above were not conducted as a result of the KPMG report, but on the basis of the Sikhakhane report. We therefore want to indicate hence the assertion that those affected are mainly endeavoring to claim innocence or otherwise on the withdrawal of the KPMG report, with others claiming that their careers and careers are destroyed as a result of KPMG report, either are grossly ignorant or outright mischievous, and or concerted by dismal attempt to mislead the South African public. We at the South African Revenue Services is calling upon those who are unfairly and justly accusing SARS of improper conduct on the basis of the KPMG report statement to desist from such conduct. I would like to indicate very briefly that the issue of this report and others border on what has been socialized in the public space, which KPMG in particular can confirm and attest. I have documents here that the Sunday evening activities which were reported, SARS has further observed another set of people who are trying too hard to claim that the purported withdrawal of the report by KPMG automatically vindicates them from their responsibility to account to the alleged criminal acts. SARS places on record that such malicious and irresponsible claims are either some acts of gross ignorance, but at worst, an attempt to circumvent the law or to mislead the public. I must state categorically clear here that in early May 2015, 2 employees voluntarily demanded to see the commissioner as they wanted to make full confession. The 2 employees informed the commissioner about the existence of an illegal and unlawful rogue unit. Included in the confession was that they were instructed by individuals in the organization to install cameras in 12 offices of both the Scorpions, at the time. Further, that the purchase of the equipment was made through cash, 950,000 in cash, which was given to them by Mr. Ferinel and his colleagues. The two were advised by the Commissioner to confess to the police, which, as far as SARS is concerned, they did. Then SARS sought legal opinion, which advised that in terms of the prevention and combating of corrupt activities, as a person holding high authority is legally obliged to open a criminal case, which SARS duly opened on May 2014. The case is in the hands of the Hawks, and SARS has, as a consequence, wanted the matter to be concluded as speedily as possible. As the above demonstrate, KPMG report was handed to SARS only late in 2015, and of course, we accepted the final version in 2016 January. As this simply demonstrates, this was long after criminal cases were opened and all necessary evidence was provided to the Hawks and the SAPS. I would like to indicate to the members of the media that it is common cause to indicate that the Hawks did receive the report from KPMG, duly submitted to them for the purposes of the investigation. Given the above facts, SARS is left with no option but to conclude that those who are claiming exoneration for possible and alleged criminal offences who are expected to be aware of these public facts can only be attempting to mislead South Africans, which SARS finds quite unfortunate. From this position, as SARS, the criminal cases whose details is outlined and is not in our hands is left with those institutions that are in the public domain, the police and others, to do so. SARS wishes to assure all South Africans, in particular taxpayers and traders, that the 14,000 men and women of SARS continue to work tirelessly and selflessly in ensuring that all revenue due to the state are collected both legally and efficiently, whilst protecting our borders and facilitating trade as we take South Africa forward together. I thank you.
Colleagues, that will be the statement that has been read by the Commissioner. We will then open for questions. I see, Karen, you are first on the starting block, so go ahead.
Commissioner Moyane, I'm just trying to clarify. You've accused KPMG of being part of what you've described as a treacherous agenda. But are you suggesting that they did something wrong in going public with what they say was clearly an irregular, unlawful report that had severe repercussions, certainly in the public sphere, in terms of the Sunday Times stories, the way in which people were portrayed, slandered, even what some people might say? Are you suggesting that they were wrong to go public and come, and many may argue, do the ethical thing in terms of saying actually this report was not legal or legally sound? You're also suggesting you want legal action against them. Are you pursuing legal action on the basis that they did a very flawed and problematic investigation that, as I said before, had such profound consequences? Or are you seeking legal action on the basis that they went public with this and, as you put it, had an agenda, against SARS? And then on what basis do you say that KPMG has an agenda? Do you have any kind of solid evidence of that? My last point is this. The Sikhakhani investigation report, none of that evidence was under oath, sir, and Judge Kroon endorsed the findings, but essentially what he was doing was a documentary review. What do you think, is there like a real sound legal basis to say that those reports and investigations are indeed as legally unassailable as you would present them as? Thank you.
Okay, so that's fine. Let the lady behind share the mic first here. Will you introduce yourself? I'm sorry not to.
Antoinette Slavert from MoneyWeb. Commissioner Moyane, if KPMG gave you more time to respond to the email, what would you have done? Would you have interdicted them, or what would you have used that time for?
Go ahead, sir.
Graham Huskin from the Times Live. Commissioner, if you're so sure of the Sikhakhani report and the Kroon report, Why then did you mandate KPMG to conduct a report into the alleged and now obviously not so alleged rogue unit? Yeah, if you can please answer me on that, thank you.
Okay, so why don't we take the first three questions and then let the Commissioner respond to those.
Thanks, Karen. I've noted the various points that you have mentioned, unlawfulness, whether there's any agenda whatsoever. I think it is important to put and contextualize the matter very clearly. One, the Sekakane report is a result of media mumblings and rumblings that have been there prior to 2014 on the allegations of an existence of a rogue unit within SARS. 2014 became the prime time wherein these matters came to the head. And hence, the Minister then of Finance instructed the then acting Deputy Commissioner, who was acting Commissioner for SARS, to investigate the matter. Firstly, this was looked through by Kanyane report, which the Minister felt was inconclusive. It was further escalated when the Minister said, I would like to have a full understanding and appreciation of what Kanyane report had to say on these matters. Advocate Sekakane SC was charged with the responsibility to give a 45-day turnaround and provide a report as to verify and give veracity to the first report that was given to the ministry. It came to us on the 5th of November, while I had already taken the leadership and stewardship of this organization. On the 5th of November, the report was provided to myself. But it is also important to note the following. When I took over, I was asked as to whether I want to review the terms and conditions of the Sekakane report. I met the Sekakane. I said I had no mandate at the time because I would like what has been agreed upon to be concluded in the manner in which it has been agreed with the minister. So Advocate Sekakane and his team left with a clear understanding that the commissioner who had just joined the organization has no hand in order to change the terms and the conditions that had been agreed upon. The report was delivered as stated on the 5th of October in its entirety, all copies given to me, and the copies were also given to the minister. The report of Sekakane is a result of the concerns that were raised by the ministry, in particular, bordering on the image and the credibility of the organization. And it mentioned that there was prima facie evidence of wrongdoing and illegality of conducting and collecting information outside the purview of those agencies that have the right and the responsibility to do so. Now, in order to close this loop, it has to be mentioned here and confirmed here that that report was not Commissioner Moyane's report. It was the report that was conducted in the previous administration, which I inherited without contaminating or, due respect I withdraw, without changing the terms and conditions. Mine was to convey that to the minister, and the minister in his wisdom, prior to his first and maiden MTBPS, appointed an advisory board that was led by a retired Judge Kroon. Amongst others, that committee, or the advisory committee, was to advise both the minister and the commissioner on some of the issues administrative that were taking place within SARS. I will not be able to answer on behalf of the judge, but the judge in his wisdom, given the position that he occupies and the code of ethics, having read and satisfied together with the team, came to the same conclusion and said they concur and agree with the contents of the report. that there was prima facie evidence of wrongdoing and illegality, especially the illegal establishment of the unit at SARS, which was conducting intelligence-driven activities without the prerequisite permission. Why am I claiming it's an agenda? Apology. We find it very strange as an administration that this report in particular, dated the 15th of September, amongst all other things, a period of slumber had taken place. The report was given to us, prepared in 2014, first on the 20, I can't remember the date, of January 2016, the report is given to us as final. A year and a half thereafter, the report is now considered as inconclusive, and if I call here, which cannot be relied upon, we find it completely disingenuous, completely unethical, and borders in giving us a sense that the organization has failed to conduct its activity despite the terms and conditions for which this work was given to us in good faith. I have on record here the previous CEO sending us a report titled KPMG report with a letter accompanying it as final, which means one ought to have, in this instance, done all the quality assurance attested to. But to come down 1 year down the year, only single one report, and say the contents therefore cannot be relied upon, borders in creating a perception to the public that SARS is not an organization that you can trust, and therefore it casts aspersion to the leadership thereof. We find it very strange that all 7 gentlemen and ladies decided to leave on one single report. The question that begs to be answered: how many reports under their leadership, how many reports that they were able to be in charge of failed to stand the scrutiny of quality assurance? And to make things worse, as a commissioner for this organization, I find it very strange that there should be a nexus between us and other organizations that I mentioned there. And therefore, it is common cause for us to say, perhaps to respond to the second one that was raised, KPMG interdicted. We're not in the process of interdiction. They had already made their mind. Because supposing I was not in the office and I was out and I needed to do other things, we felt that we're dealing with a reputable organization that stands the scrutiny of being able to do their work professionally, and they are accountable for their work. At no point did we consider any interdiction of their work, but common cause would have dictated that had they had seen that there was flaws, there's sufficient time to come and have a discussion with us. And I want to confirm that when this matter was raised with me on Friday the 15th, I immediately passed the information to the Chief Officer Legal to look at the legal implications, and also called upon those who are responsible from an enforcement perspective as to what are the ramifications thereof. I also want to indicate, once I received this, I immediately informed the Minister of Finance of the seriousness and the nature of the contents, especially if you look at paragraph 3, that says, the report which refers to conclusion, recommendations, and legal opinions should no longer be relied upon. That is a very serious statement. And I also shared the same sentiments, same report with the Deputy Minister of Finance. And therefore we thought it is important and prudent that we also inform the state institutions, government institutions that are responsible for matters that have an impact on SARS as an institution. We informed SCOPA, hence we have Mr. Nyamezeli Boy here. We informed SCOF, that we want this matter to be looked into. Because it is quite amazing for us and shocking, because a tax administration of a magnitude as SARS cannot be pushed into a situation wherein the reports that we are commissioned can be seen to be doubted upon, and we take action without full accountability. KPMG should be held accountable. KPMG must be accountable for all the things that they have written to us, which we have confirmed and accepted as a final report that we have accepted. And therefore, we have also on record, when the matter was now dealt with from a criminal perspective, the Hawks requested that this information be shared with them. And that was done with a thorough and thorough process of all the processes being followed. The former CEO was given a letter, and he complied and gave the report to the investigating authorities. As to how they are going to deal with this matter is no longer in our hands. But I want to indicate that at no point were we intending to interdict, but we found that the speed with which they acted to go and make a statement without giving us an authority. This thing I don't think happened overnight on Thursday night, Friday morning, when they were announcing new leadership into that organization. They knew about this. They should have come to us earlier. My point as the accounting authority, much as I received this letter, I did what is expected from me, not to be derelict of my responsibility with malicious intent, to take this matter with the seriousness that it has to legal for scrutiny, for assessment. And for them on the morning to give us a letter and 2 hours later, it's unacceptable. It is important, therefore, that South Africans should understand that when you occupy positions of leadership, you have the responsibility to take full accountability of what you are responsible for. And therefore, would be interested to see as the course of action that they're taking. And therefore, that is why we have elected to inform all relevant parties to deal with the matters that are at hand. Now, it is Times Media. I should think it's Times Media. Why mandate KPMG? Is that the question? Any person who occupies a position of authority and responsibility and taking cognizance of the seriousness of the issues that have been shared with him, at times you want to have what you call second opinion, a second bite, and have a sense as to the trajectory and the reports that you have been properly attested to. We did that mindful of the fact that we gave them all the reports in order for them to have an independent opinion and assessment without due influence of the leadership. I'm saying this because they had ability to access the individual's computers, mirror image, look at their content and communication, and therefore give us as to whether indeed was there prima facie evidence of wrongdoing. I'll take a pause there.
Okay, let's take the next round of questions. Please do introduce yourself, ma'am at the back. We will come back. Let's give the others. I
Natasha.
apologize for not knowing your name. But, go ahead.
It's Olivia Palaitile from Jacaranda FM. Commissioner, I just want to ask, who do you think is behind this agenda that you are suggesting might be there?
Okay. The lady next to you. No, go ahead. You have a mic. She will come after you.
Natasha from the Business Day. Commissioner, all the investigations into this unit so far have been quite tainted. We know that the Sunday Times reports, many of them have been corrected, publicly corrected. We know that the Kruan Committee simply endorsed the Sikakane report, and it was also revealed that a member of the Kruan Committee had actually sought to leak damaging information on SARS to newspapers. Now the KPMG report has been discredited. If we go back to the Sikakane report, the recommendation was for a judicial commission of inquiry. And that was actually the recommendation from Sikakane, which you now seem to be relying on. Why has SARS never pursued that route? And do you think you will be pursuing it now since this terrain is so tainted on both sides? Thank you.
Ma'am, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm Lamise Umarji from Fin24. Commissioner, you've mentioned that this is an attempt to attack SARS, and last week in Parliament you also said that your life had been in danger, and I'd just like you to confirm that and for you to explain to what end are people trying to attack the institution.
Okay. The one last end? Right, you're taking a second bite, so let me have the Commissioner answer. We'll come back to everyone.
Honorable members of the media present here. There's one thing that is sacrosanct, the sovereignty of the state and the institution that we defend. SARS forms part of that nexus. Any form of negative media has a very serious impact. One, create uncertainty, instability, and people feel that we have an institution that is unable to run its affairs. Let me respond to who is behind the agenda. I don't have a particular name or persons. An agenda can be as broad as anything, depending as to how those who have studied English on the nature of what the agenda means. But the agenda here, Ms. Pillay, am I right? Is that the agenda is very clear to cast aspersion. I find it very strange that we are being asked of an agenda. The agenda is that there has been, and we continue and wait for the requisite authorities in government to conclude their part and their section in the investigation that is taking place as to what is really behind this. Who is behind this? I do not have the skills, the requisite skills within SARS to be doing what is called agenda searching processes or capability in intelligence to look into the agendas. Mine is a capability of creating a team that is strong of collecting all revenue due and creating a climate wherein all South Africans can have the belief and trust in this august organization that for years has stood tall and be able to comply and collect all revenue due. It will be my duty, therefore, to defend all the 14 or 15,000 men and women of SARS who, at all material time beyond the call of duty, work very hard to create this environment. At no point have we failed the South Africans. And we are very grateful that we can report to the stakeholders and all taxpayers that we do our work openly without fear or favor, and we treat all taxpayers without any favor whatsoever. And therefore the question of agenda, I'm very much loath to respond to. I'm not sure what agenda is, but I see there's a hand that says you should not trust that institution. And by so doing, by creating and casting aspersion, you are creating an atmosphere wherein people should look at the organization with a different eye altogether. And we therefore believe that it is important that we come out very clearly, unambiguously so, openly so, that we're doing our work in the manner that is within the parameters of the law. Any other issue that is outside the law would not be able to do. Natasha? What happened is that when the Sikhakhane report was given to us in 2014, November, the report was given to both the minister and the deputy minister because they were the custodian, including SARS, to be able to understand what the contents of the report were all about, as interested parties to understand that they are responsible for an institution wherein these serious allegations were being directed to. And therefore, I want to believe that in the discussion that I had with both the minister and the deputy minister, there was great concern that if these things are happening within SARS, therefore they need to be rooted out. And I need to put on record that once these issues were made, I called a press conference. I said, that unit is disbanded. I think if we call back, we can recall. I said, if that unit does exist within SARS, it must cease to exist, and the individuals who might be in that must surface and they must debriefed so they can do the correct work that is expected of taxpayers and tax administration, which is their responsibility. Fin 24? Yes. Ma'am, I want to indicate that it is of great concern if you are sitting in an organization and occupying a position and being asked a question in Parliament wherein I'm being told that they knew my movements. And I want to repeat this. That question arises out of the question that was raised in the previous year, wherein one member of the Parliament said, I went to Paris to attend a meeting. I refused to stay in that hotel, wasted taxpayers' money. I chose a different hotel. On record, the SARS Commissioner, records will confirm, did not change any hotel. A hotel that is allocated to me, I go and stay there in accordance to the levels and the decisions that have been taken by procurement. So that's the first lie. And therefore perpetuate a lie that the Commissioner is living on bling. He wants to do things the way he wants. Strange enough, on that very issue, I took very serious exception to it. That is why I made an extensive explanation in the portfolio of finance last week, Wednesday. I was to chair a meeting the following day, despite the fact that I did not leave that hotel. I stayed in that hotel. I became seriously ill, to a point in the South African High Commissioner in Paris had to find an urgent doctor to attend to my illness. I was going to chair a meeting. And one wonders as to what could have happened. And certainly, I can confirm here, there has been, of course, very funny phone calls that one receives. So you never know as to whether one's life is at stake, I'm watched, and such questions for me, they're a cause for concern. And they create a situation of distress, but certainly, I'm saying I take everything as it comes to me as a leader, to lead from the front and do what is expected of me. Thank you.
Right. That's that.
Yeah.
Mr. Boy, want to add?
Yeah. No, what I wanted to say is we thank the opportunity that SARS is providing for us to be able to go down to the bottom of what has been said. We quite clearly take a serious exception to the way KPMG has handled this particular matter. These are taxpayers' money. It's not their money, as we always say, that it is in the interest of South Africans that we know how deep and this, KPMG play a particular role. KPMG on its own goes into Treasury. As we're dealing with the IFMS report, KPMG was involved. As we're dealing with the South African Airways, KPMG was involved. As we deal with the South African Express, KPMG was involved. So our interest as SCOPA has always been to look at why would the taxpayers' money be wasted and not being able to be accounted for. So we thank this opportunity to be able to express that we will be going deeper into the matter itself, and we'll be challenging KPMG from a parliamentary point of view of how far they think their own decision is not so costly and doesn't cost us and the sovereignty of South Africa in the way they've conducted themselves. So as a parliamentary committee, listening to the different views that they are expressing, we'll definitely be going more deeper to understand what does that report imply Because it can't be KPMG's own decision to say it cost us 63 million and this is what we're going to do. The part that more and more concerns us is that they've been playing quite a lot of significant role with the Auditor General when it comes to the different reports that we have to receive and report about that involve KPMG. And that matter, as I'm talking to you now, it is in front of us, and we're going to be processing it. But it's a matter of interest to South Africans to know that how far is their taxpayers' money being wasted. And it can be the decision of KPMG and SARS, only that in their own engagement, they can come to a conclusion. As an institution that is constitutionally emboldened to be able to look after the taxpayers' money, will definitely be following up on the matter itself.
Okay, I've just gotten an indication that I need to take the last round, so we'll start up front here. May have to be more than 3 questions there. Go ahead.
Good morning. From Bloomberg. Allow me to quote very quickly. There are 2 things here. Firstly, the whole conspiracy theory of replacing good people with bad to facilitate state capture. SARS became a political project, and it is now run by people who have no idea how to manage a tax administration system. They don't know what skills are needed and how to use them. That is, quote, a letter from the former finance minister, and a man that you may have been at loggerheads with previously, former finance minister Pravin Gordhan. I'd like to get your thoughts, Commissioner, on that point.
Okay, let's go. Miriam, it's to you. Oh.
Thank you. I don't think this is working anymore.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Just to clarify, because I think this is very important, do you, as the Commissioner of SARS, acknowledge that that report is problematic and has no basis in evidence? Because your unhappiness seems to lie in the fact that there's been this public repudiation by KPMG of that report. But you, as the Commissioner, Tom Moyane, do you accept that that report is flawed and cannot be used as evidence about the so-called rogue unit? Do you accept that, or do you still believe that there's a basis, that that report has evidence in it, and that this, because your suggestion seems to be that this is, the repudiation of it is a political act, not one driven by the legal implications or the legal problems. So I just want clarity on that. And then second of all, the Minister of Finance indicated to me that he was going to meet with you about those publicized reports of the Gupta family not being taxed at all over a period between 2011 and I think 2013. I know you can't go into people's personal details, but have you had a meeting with the Minister over that, and have you been able to reach some kind of agreement about that situation? Thank you.
Okay, so Karen, can I quickly say that the last part of your question we're not going to answer?
Why not?
No, because
The Minister of Finance has publicly spoken about this. And it's an issue.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm sure the Minister of Finance has a right to say that, but to the extent that this matter, it relates to a specific taxpayer, I think we must then say that SARS can't then comment on that specifically. So
I'm not asking you to comment. I'm saying, has there been such a meeting and has the situation been resolved?
No, that's fine.
Not a comment on the taxpayer. The Minister of Finance is in public with that. We're just seeking clarification on whether that meeting happened.
That's fine. Let's have that next question at the back, yeah?
Commissioner, you're talking about instituting legal proceedings against KPMG for reputational damage, including but not limited to a civil claim. Have you quantified that claim yet? And what other legal proceedings are you planning, and how far is the process?
Commissioner Graham Hoskin again from the Times. The second Sekane report, was mandated to investigate a complaint against Mr. van Lockenberg stemming from Belinda Walters, and was then unilaterally expanded to include the so-called rogue unit. Given that the alleged rogue unit members were never themselves questioned, you know, was that a concern for you that they weren't questioned, that they didn't get their side of the story, as well as the Kroon report? I mean, they were never questioned during that. Surely that should have been concern to you. And I understand that you wanted a second legal opinion, hence you went to KPMG. But given that you were so assured of the report by a by a judge and that, as you've indicated, was it really necessary, or did you have any doubts over the Kroon and Sekhukhane report? And then also, in terms of the KPMG report, we see a number of their findings were actually a copy and paste of SARS' own legal report. I mean, this has been reported by the Daily Maverick, a couple of other media organizations quite extensively. Surely if there was concerns over KPMG's report, there should be concerns over your own legal advisory from around what the so-called SARS rogue unit allegedly did. Thank you.
I mean, the last person that I'm going to ask the question here.
Okay, thank you. Nomo Sapungula from ANN7. Commissioner, I just want to find out, will this withdrawal have a legal impact on the investigations in the SARS rogue units? What is the advice that you have gotten from your legal team, if there is any? And secondly, what I'd like to find out is there anything on record from the 3 reports that suggest that the former Commissioner, Pravin Gordhan, should have known about the illegal activities conducted by the so-called rogue unit? As per the procedures of SARS, how should this ignorance of illegalities be seen as? Is this a case of innocent lack of oversight or a serious breach of obligations?
Commissioner, that's the last batch of questions. Please do answer those.
Thanks, Program Director. Bloomberg, you quoted extensively. I don't have the capacity to recall verbatim what you said, but what I noted here, it says SARS has employed people who have no idea, who have no experience, no IT experience. It goes on and on and on. May I put it on record here that if we speak of IT capability, I have here in front of South Africans Miss Mamate Makheche Mokwane, who is a nominee of the MTN IT Awards for 2017 in the category of leadership. Then the question that begs to be answered, are we saying that she has no capability? She has no experience in IT. I'll not delve into answering questions that I have no sense of as to how they are derived at, by whomsoever has made that statement. All I can tell you is that if SARS did not have the capability and the skills, the question that begs is that, please let's go back to our track record. From the time that we took stewardship of this organization, it has been an upward trajectory. We have collected revenue, met the target, surpassed the target, and we are proud of the work that we have. So I don't see the narrative or the statement as substantive as it may seek to be, to fulfill that which it seeks to portray us to be. We have men and women who are capable, men and women who are running this institution, men and women who have all the experience to run a tax administration. And therefore, the question simply put is that that statement lacks substance. We have people who can do so. And therefore, I would not like to entertain that question further than it does. It doesn't meet that does not stand the test of what we have been able to. Had we not had the quality of the leadership that it attached doesn't, SARS would have completely fallen between the cracks. Perhaps what begs to be answered here is, do we have to choose a certain criteria of people that suit a certain profile? Or we We appoint people according to the qualities and that which they'll bring into the organization. The other issue that is raised here is that, is the report problematic? I want to say the report by KPMG is not flawed. In fact, the report that from KPMG confirms conclusively, deeply so, that there's prima facie, I'm not sure whether there's two words, prima facie, a double wrongdoing in this organization. That there were people who were involved in real serious problems that are not tax related. So I didn't find the report as flawed. On the contrary, when the report was given to us, it gave one goosebumps that what Sikakane had unearthed is just a tip of the iceberg. That is why the Hawks requested us for the copy of the report, which we duly followed the process, and that is why the investigation is continuing. I would like to concur with the program director, Mr. Hlengane Mathebula, when he says, we're not here to talk about taxpayers. And I want to say it as the Commissioner for the Southern Revenue Services to the media houses that kindly refrain from drawing us to speaking about taxpayers' information. The Tax Administration Act prohibits us that we should talking about taxpayers' information in the public space. It is criminal. Chapter 6.
Sir, I'm not asking you to comment on the butcher's personal details. I'm asking you to confirm whether you have met with the Minister of Finance.
I'm coming to that. Don't be too upset, and also give me the time. And I want to say, every time I have an interview with you, you seem to have an upset aptitude.
Can you hold it? So I think let's do this, Karen. One of the things that we do is that we give an opportunity to ask questions, we respond. But we can't. But we can't have this. So let's just agree on one thing. We can't have this. So what I was trying to avoid is a dialogue that's not going to be useful. So let's get the Commissioner to answer the question in its entirety. And if there is really strong need for us to be able to entertain that, let's do that. But let's do it in a manner that all of us are able to respect each other. All the questions asked are as crucial and important, and I'm sure South African public wants to hear the answers to those. And where the mistakes have been made or are not been answered correctly, we need to clarify that. That's all I'm asking for.
Simply put, Program Director, Mr. Mathebula, and to all South Africans listening, the Commissioner for the South African Revenue Service does not discuss taxpayers' matters with the Minister. I have no right to discuss taxpayers' matters with the Minister. So that question does not arise. I just wanted to give you a chronology of events. The Minister and I, in whatever meeting, in whatever form, he may want to ask something about so-and-so, I will not answer. And he knows he will not ask me about taxpayers, because there is Chapter 6 of the Tax Administration Act which precludes any discussion of taxpayer information with any other, including the Minister. The other question that is going to be answered by my colleague here, Ms. Mokoena, is legal proceedings. I would like to defer to her, please.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. The question is SARS considering legal proceedings? And if so, has SARS quantified the damages, and how far is the process? The answer is yes, we are considering taking legal proceedings regarding this. You will As you're aware, there is a service level agreement entered into between SARS and KPMG that outlines the rights and obligations of both parties. Considering the statement that the KPMG has made this past Friday, we want to find out if our rights have been infringed, and if so, to what extent, and what will the nature of our remedies, if any, will be against KPMG. As the Commissioner has read the letter from the attorneys of KPMG, you will note that at no stage did KPMG say they are withdrawing their report. If I were to quote verbatim, the statement says, having noted that the internal controls of KPMG were not adhered to, therefore, those parts of the report that relate to the conclusions, the findings, and recommendations may no longer be relied to. That then calls for us to seek legal opinion as to the status of the report is, considering that only 3 parts of the report are now being surveyed. That on its own calls for legal opinion. We have our own views, but we'll have to engage the services of our counsel. This statement was announced on Friday. We have not had the opportunity to consult with our legal team. We'll be doing so, and that will be imminent. As to the quantification, in this instance, we cannot quantify. There are issues of reputational harm that we are considering. There are issues of breach of the service level agreement, if any. And of course, as you have read, there is those terms and conditions which are material in our view that state that once the report was accepted by SARS as final on the 6th of January 2016, then all the intellectual property in that report belongs to SARS. That KPMG could have communicated parts of that report unilaterally without consulting with SARS, as we've demonstrated, calls also for legal opinion on those issues. Thank you.
So whilst Ms. Mkwana just finished that, can I just read to you an email from Nkubeko Sbiya, communication specialist from KPMG. Could you please forward this message as recommended? We will appreciate it if SARS during the press conference can clarify the following. 1. Contrary to the media reports, KPMG has not retracted the SARS report in its entirety. Please read our statement again. Given the failure, that's in quotation marks, given the failure to appropriately apply our own risk management and quality controls, that part of the report which refers to the conclusions, recommendations, and legal opinions should no longer be relied upon, close quotes. So that's a text that has just come in from KPMG. Commissioner, can you conclude the other parts of your question so that we can bring the conference to an end?
Thanks, Hlengani. Thank you very much for bringing that technology at its highest level. And we appreciate that you have the technology and the skill to meander through those. Graham from the Times, JVL Walters. With due respect, I would not like to get into this matter because it's a matter that is taking its legal course. And therefore, for me to be drawn into that would be disingenuous and incorrect for me to comment on something that, from a legal perspective, I'll not be able to respond to. And I'll be most grateful if my response is acceptable to you, and wait for the authorities that are dealing with this matter to address it appropriately. As and when perhaps SARS is drawn into it and we need to respond, certainly our legal team will be able to advise how best to deal with it. The Krohn report, yes. Krohn was appointed by the minister in accordance to the SARS Act, and the responsibility is therefore and the veracity and authenticity of confirming that which they have been able to apply their mind for gave management the what you call the courage and the confidence that that which we have before us is something that we can rely upon and use as an instrument for a process of the investigation and disciplinary processes that we took. What I do not agree with, perhaps that's KPMG's prerogative to respond to. You allege, if I'm wrong, correct me, that you think that part of it was cut and paste. I'm not sure. We as SARS, when we contract anybody, it is their duty to do the best that they can. And if cut and paste is what you have found, then it's just lamentable that an organization of this stature should resort to such poor standards of cut and paste without looking at the merits and the demerits or the damage potential that might emanate from poor quality work. If there's cut and paste, then there is a problem.
You see,
No, let me finish.
you see, can we be consistent? You know, it can't be that I ask Karen not to do this and Graham, you do the same. It can't be. And colleagues, maybe it's a long time since I chaired the press conference and I'm a little bit rusty. But can the commissioner conclude?
Yes.
And I'm really kind of very happy to, in the instance where there is really those aspects that we need to further clarify, that we do so. But it can't be that we intervene, thereby missing the essence of what is being said. I'm really just appealing for that.
From a colleague, journalist from AN7, 3 questions. SARS rogue unit, that is under investigation. We can confirm from the reports that we have, and would like to stand by the reports that we have as management, that there is prima facie evidence that the unit existed until I disbanded it, whether it has disbanded, but the fact of the matter is that once that came to my attention, I took the right decision to disband it, and I can confirm that the members of that unit were surfaced, and of course they had to go through a process of debriefing and being brought back into the organization. The issue you spoke about, Minister Pravin Gordhan, what was the question?
But can I help there?
I was asking if, as the former Commissioner Ugodan, should he have known about the illegal activities conducted by that rogue unit? As your procedures as SARS, how should this ignorance of the illegalities be seen as? Is this the case of innocent lack of oversight or serious breach of obligations?
You want to answer?
No, go ahead, Commissioner.
No, I just want to say on that question, the investigation is taking place. And certainly I am not in the position to judge conclusively. It is the investigation that is taking place both by the Hawks and other institutions as to whether he ought not, may not. You may use any verb or adverbs that will emanate as the process continues. I would be most grateful if we may leave that for the competent institutions to be able to prove whether that is the direction. And on that note, I think it answers the question of legality, illegality, I've compressed my response to that. But the Member of Parliament, Mr. Boy, Program Director, and who would like to have a comment on one issue raised by Bloomberg.
Where we are seated as parliamentarians and people who take an oversight over these institutions, one of the things that we have been committing ourselves is to look at the capabilities of our own institutions and how they get undermined or how do they strengthen the work that they do, and the results that come out of that. It'd be quite ingenuous of us to say SARS at this particular moment has not been able to do that particular, take up their particular responsibility and assist the taxpayers of South Africa to be able to be aware of how they conduct their work. And that's why we are saying that we will continue engage our institutions, because the capabilities of the state, in the way Bloomberg was putting it, are being put at question. And we have been engaging with SARS even through the anti-corruption unit to be able to be aware, if ever, the level of concerns that is being expressed. Is there any problem that, or should we at some stage doubt what is happening? We are confident as parliamentarians, where we sit at, that SARS is contributing enormously with its own work that it is doing in collecting the tax for South Africans. And it's on those bases that say way beyond what we've been hearing and way beyond KPMG's report, we'll still continue to investigate what is exactly confronting us as South Africans. Because you can't leave it where taxpayers' money is involved to individuals. It is our responsibility to attend to that and make sure that as COPA there is results in what is beginning to confront us. We don't doubt SARS as an institution, we don't doubt the Hawks, and we have been working with all of them on the anti-corruption unit to confront what we think is very much important. The doubtfulness about how our institutions are conducting themselves and how the work is coming across, we will be able to come back as parliamentarians through SCOPA that what is exactly going on at SARS. But we don't buy the statement says that we should doubt the institution itself.
Okay, so colleagues, I'm going to go back to Graham and Karen. But I'm going to limit them to exactly that point. So Karen, that question was answered to say the minister can ask any issue around taxpayers. You fine with that? Okay.
The minister, during the CEO initiative briefing, stated on camera that he was going to seek a meeting. So I think the commissioners may be suggesting that the minister doesn't know the law. So that's fine. But we'll clarify with the finance minister.
Okay, that's great. I think that question might be best answered by the minister. That's why I'm happy we clarify that. Graham?
Just on my questions, okay, I understand that you don't want to be drawn into the Belinda Walters, Johan van Lochenberg matter. But then my second question to that was the Sikakane report and the Kroon report. They, and inquiries, they never spoke to the so-called rogue unit members. Given that they never spoke to them, given that they were never interviewed, is it a concern to you that based on these reports, it was then said that there is this rogue unit or there is this allegedly criminal activity that is taking place? We haven't seen a judicial commission of inquiry yet being called into this, although it was asked for or said that it needed to happen. We then have the legal opinion. Sorry, it's on still in the same question. I'm not asking any
but you're
other question.
elucidating on a different question, and you see, you can't abuse me when I give you an opportunity to clarify.
I'm asking for clarification on it.
No, I'm going to be very straight with you. The intention is very clear. Where the commissioner was not very clear, that specific matter, but don't give me a long
I'm not giving you any story, sir.
Okay.
I'm asking in terms of the question that I asked originally, in terms of the Sikakane and Kroon report, that the so-called rogue unit members were never interviewed. Is that of concern to you, yes or no? And if so, can you please elaborate? Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, that's the last part.
The fact that they were not interviewed or interrogated doesn't concern me, because the process will still unfold. They'll still have their day to respond when they have to make their statement under oath, and be, of course, to take the process forward. So, Graham, I think, in short, that answers your question. So the process does not conclude with a report that is there, and of course, you need to interrogate the process going forward so that you have what you call a final conclusion on matters, and when you take that report and file it, you know that that's a final document. And when you open it later, it's just for question of reference. So on that note, I would like to say thank you very much for giving us your time and kindly accept our sincere and humble apology as was expressed by the program director.
Colleagues, thanks so much. That concludes the briefing from the Commissioner of SARS.